We start on the bottom of Nun Ches, Ton Rabbanon. Tamid Koidim LaPesach. The afternoon Korban HaTamid was done before the Shchitas HaPesach. And then the Pesach was Koidim LaKtoiris. The afternoon, remember, the Ktoiris was divided. Some of it was done in the morning as part of the Korban HaShachar, and some of it was done after the Shchita of the Ben Arbayim Tamid. So the Korban Pesach preceded the Ktoiris, and the Ktoiris Koidim es Laneros. The Hadlakas Haneros was the last avoda until the morning. Now, how do we know that the Korban Pesach was shechted after the Tamid? Says the Gemara, Ye'ucher davar shenemar bo ba'erev, because it says in the pasuk, Tizbachet HaPesach ba'erev, kivo HaShemesh moed tzeischam mitzrayim, that's in Dvarim. And it says, V'shachatu oso kol kahada das Yisrael bein arboim. Bein arboim means in the afternoon. So ba'erev and the ba'erev, the davar shaloi nemar bo ba'erev ela bein arboim, bilvad. By the Korban HaTamid, it says, V'sakeves hasheni tasei bein arboim. So the Gemara is learning that the Korban Pesach, where it says ba'erev and bein arboim, should be shechted after the Tamid, where it only says bein arboim bichlal. Based on that logic, we should do the avodah of the Ktoris and the Neros also before the Pesach, because Ye'ucher davar shenemar bo ba'erev bein arbayim, the Pesach should be done last, because there it said ba'erev and bein arbayim, the davar shelo nemar bo bein arbayim bilvad, because by the it says balos haronas haneros bein arbayim yaktirena Ktoris tamim lefnei shel adoroi sefer. So both by the Neros and by the Ktoris, it only says bein arbayim. So the Pesach should go after them as well. The Gemara answers, Shiny Hasam Demiyat Rachmana Oso. There's a special drasha of Oso, as we'll see soon, which tells us that the Neros has to be done last. The Tanya. It says in Pasuk, Ba'oil Moed, Michutz LaParoches, Asher Alei Edus, Ya'aroch Oso Aharon Uvanov Me'erev ad Boker Lifnei Hashem Chukas Oil M'Torah. It's referring to the menorah. It says Me'erev ad Boker, teaching me Tein La Midasa, put the proper volume of oil into the menorah Tedolekas Me'erev ad Boker, in order that it should burn from night to the morning. Dover Acher Ein Lecha Avodah Sheksher Me'erev ad Boker L'Zu Bilvad. There's no other avoda that is kosher to do from night to book except the menorah. Therefore, you can't do anything after it. My time, huh? Amar kra yaroch oso aron vadov me'erev ad boker. Oso me'erev ad boker ve'ein davar acher me'erev ad boker. No other avoda could be done me'erev ad boker. And iskish k'toiris l'neros. The word k'toiris appears in the same pasuk as the menorah. V'taniki kushyon, and there's a baraisa like our kasha, meaning Tamid Kodim like Toires. A baraisa says that the Korban HaTamid was shechted before the Ktoiris, and the Ktoiris was done before the Neros, and the Neros was Kodim es LePesach. Why? Because of the logic we said. Yuchur davar shenemar bo ba'erev bein arbayim, l'davar shelo nemar ela bein arbayim bilvad. What are you going to do? Aksiv oso. So, to say that is only relating to the avodot that are done inside the heichal, which is the menorah and the Ktoris. The Pesach is done outside, right? My new Ktoris. So, maybe you would think, because it's not very clear from the pasuk whether the Ktoris goes before the menorah goes before Ktoris. So, Miyad Rachmana Oso. So that to say that the menorah goes last. Ela bein arbayim yaktir alamali. Hachi kam Rachmana be'idin de midlakas neros de miktor Ktoris. When you go and light the neros, the Ktoris should already be burning. So the Rambam paskins that you makriv the Tomit Shabin Arbayim, then the Ketores, then the Neros, and then you shech the Korban Pesach, like this last Baraisa. That's the halach. Ton Rabbanon. In the morning, the only avodah that was done before the Shchitas HaShachris, Tomid, was the morning Torahs. Shenemar ba boiker ba boiker. It says a double lashon ba boiker. Yukdam Torahs. The Torahs therefore should be the first thing because Dover Shenemar ba boiker ba boiker. The Chsiv by Torahs ve'ikter alea aron Torahs Samim ba boiker ba boiker. The Dover Shenemar ba boiker echad. By the Korban HaTomid, it says as a keves echatase ba boiker. It doesn't say a double boiker. So therefore, the Torahs in the morning goes before the Shchitas HaTomid Shel Shachar. The only thing that follows the Tomid Shel Ben Arbaim is the Ketores, the Neros, and then the Korban Pesach. One more, U'machusa Kippurim be'erva Pesach. So a Metzora, or a Zav or a Zava or a Nida, so they have to count 7 clean days. They have to go to the mikvah on the 7th day. But then on the 8th day, before they eat korbanos, they have to bring korbanos. Until they bring their korbanos, they're called mechusar kippurim. Now, here's the problem. Let's say the 8th day for a mitzvah comes out on Erev Pesach. And they've already offered the Tomid Shel Ben Arbaim. Now, if he doesn't get to offer his personal Korban Mitzorah, he's not going to be purified to be able to eat the Korban Pesach. And eating the Korban Pesach is a mitzvah to say that has koris attached. I.e., if you don't eat the Korban Pesach or involved in the Shchitas HaPesach, you get koris for revatling that asay. So even though normally, because there's an asay that the Korban HaTomid in the afternoon should be the final Korban and nothing should be done afterward, we make an exception by the Mechusar Kippurim. He's allowed to bring his Korbanos because the asay that has koris attached to it is more chomer than a regular asay. Right? Mechusar Kippurim B'erev Pesach shetovel shenis v'achlas pitchol ha'erev.
Yeah, but it could be a lavaditic. But a lavaditic, he could bring. If he doesn't, so he'll bring it.
There's no lav here. It's just 2 assays. The assay of eating the Pesach and the assay that there's an assay that the Korban HaTomid should be the last. It's not a lav. It's an assay.
But even still, if he can't bring it because he's Mechusar Kippurim, he'll bring it on Pesach Sheni.
But you don't have to because the halacha is you're allowed to violate the assay that doesn't have koris, meaning we won't have the Korban HaTomid be the last Korban for the Mitzorah. He will able to bring his Korbanos of Kapara and to allow him to eat the Korban Pesach because koris would be attached if he didn't eat it. So one assay dominates the other assay.
Okay.
Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yochanan ben Rekha Omer, Af Mechusar Kippurim b'Shari Mos Hashana. He says it's not just Erev Pesach. Every day of the year. If the Korban HaTomid had been brought already and the Mitzvah shows up late, he's allowed to bring his Korbanos even after the Tomid was offered. And he'll be able to eat Kochim that night. Now we're gonna have to understand the sheet of Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yochanan ben Rekha. Bishul Latana Kama, we understand. Yavo say that Pesach sheyesh bo kores, v'yitcha say that shlama she'en bo kores. Like we explained, El Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yochanan ben Rekha, my ulmei da hayaseh ma'ayaseh. You have both are assays. You have the assay that the Mitzvah has to bring a korban for Kippurim, for Kapor, and then you have an assay that the Tomid Shel Ben Arbaim should be the last korban. Well, they're the same asay. Why should one asay be doich the other asay? On Ravina Rav Chisda, we're talking about that the Mitzora's korban that he hadn't brought yet is a bird chatas. Because she'ein lamizbech el adama. What you do the malika on the chatas oif, you sprinkle the blood, but you don't put any basar or any emurim of that chatas onto the mizbeach, because the kohanim eat the chatas oif. The only thing that is osir to offer after you were makriv the korban atomid is haktoras chalovim ala mizbeach. But dam, offering dam through zrika alone after the korban atomid is permitted. What's not permitted is to put chalovim, the innards, the emurim, and the chaylev. Well, the Gemara says there's no chaylev offered on mizbeach by a chatas sa'ol. That's Rav Chisda's teretz. Why Rabbi Shmuel holds during the rest of the year the korban mitzorah could be brought even after the tummy. Because we're talking about only the chatas sa'ol. Rav Papa Amar filu teva b'chatas behema. No, even an animal chatas where chaylev and emurim are put there. What did they do? Malo melina b'rosh shel mizbeach. They would bring up the fats to the top of the mizbeach, but not put them on the mizbeach itself. They would that means if you left them overnight, not on the mizbeach, it would become nifsal belina. Means if you leave something beyond the morning, not on the mizbeach, it becomes possible. But if you bring up a part of the korban up onto the mizbeach, the lina does not possible it, and therefore he didn't violate the asay of the hashlama after the korban chatas because he does it the following day. The Mitzorah also brings an asham. And an asham can only be brought not from so this is a kasha on Rav Chisda. Because Rav Chisda explained, we're talking about a chatas ha'of. Because the Mitzorah has to bring an ola, a chatas, and an asham. So a chatas ha'of, I understand, there's no chaylev going on it. But an asham is going on it. So Bishop Rav Papa had a demalin law. So the way Rav Papa answered that you bring up the fats to the mizbech, but you don't put it on the grill yet. So there's no halana, and therefore you can do it tomorrow. El Rav Chisda, Michael Amema, Rav Chisda doesn't hold of bringing it up to the top of the mizbech to be mailing. So therefore there is another korban that's going to be a problem for the Mitzorah. So the Gemara answers, Ami Shekori Vasham. We're talking about a case, the Mitzorah already offered his Asham. It's just he hadn't offered his Chatas Ha'of. Chatas Ha'of can be offered because you're not putting Chaylev there. Now, besides the Chatas, the Asham, the Mitzorah has to bring an Ola. An Ola is an animal. Maybe you'll tell me that the Korban Ola is not Ma'akev. You don't have to bring the Ola in order to eat Kachim. All you have to do is bring is Lechatas. You can't say that the Ola is not Ma'akev. The Ola will ruin the situation, and the Mitzvah will not be able to eat his Korbanos. So maybe you'll answer me like you answered before, that the Asham was offered. It was already offered. You can't offer the Ola before the Chatas. There's an order. First the Chatas, then the Ola. If to want to teach me that the Chatas goes before an Ola, it already says the second should be the Ola, so we know the Chatas is first. So what's the pasuk v'yikrivas asher l'chatas rishona come to teach me? Elazebana of the whole chatos, and to teach me it's not only here, but by all cases we have to bring a chatas and ola. She kodmas l'chol oila saboisi moed. Chatas always goes before an ola, so you can't tell me that the ola was offered already because you got to bring the chatas first. And that kaimelon that feel chatas oif kodemes l'oilas behema. And even a bird chattas goes before an oil behema. So how do we answer? Amar Rav Shani oilis mitzoira, the Rachmana Omer vehe'ala kohenesa ola, she'ela kvar, means it, even though normally the chattas should go first, if in the case of a mitzvah they brought the ola first, you can change the order. You can bring the oila before the chattas. So we're talking about a case where the ola and the arshim were offered, and the only thing according to Rav Chizah wasn't offered was the chattas ha'of, which you can bring the dam, only doesn't ruin the aseh of hashlama by the korban tamid shel ben arbai. Amalei Rav Shimon bar Rav Papa. Rav Papa said that it could be a chattas behema, but we have this trick of bringing the chaylev up to the Rosh HaMizbeach where it does not get nifsal belina. Lidid chodamrit malo melina b'Rosh HaMizbeach kaimin vavdin milsa lekwan dosu b'lei dekala. But then you're going to set up a situation where the Kohanim could make a mistake. Maybe they think the chaylev is today's chaylev, and they'll offer it today, even though you're supposed to push it off till tomorrow. So, Omer le Kohanim's reasoning. You don't have to worry. Kohanim are careful in halacha. You can rely on them that they're not going to make a mistake. Omer le Vashi Rav Kohanim. Amri lo Rav when a braid Rav Nas Rav Papa. V'hakabad lo mit kiriyei murim Kohanim lo imatzu achli baser. We have a problem. You want to delay the offering the chaylev until tomorrow. The problem is the Kohanim cannot eat the meat today until the chalavim are offered, right? With the Tanya, Yachol you Kohanim Rishoy b'chazav b'shok. You shech the shlami. The Kohanim are given the breast and the thigh, and you might think they could eat it kodim aktor semurim before the chaylev and the eburim are put on the mizbeach. Talmud loymar the hiktir hakohen es hachaylev hamizbeach. First, it says the Kohen puts the chaylev on the mizbeach. Then only then does it say that the breast can be eaten by the Kohanim. And not only that, comment the Kohanim lachli basar balam lamiskapri. And we have a problem. The whole issue is to allow the mitzorah to get his kapara, so he can eat kachim tonight. You know what? Until the Kohanim eat the meat, the bottom don't get kapara. The Tanya v'achlu osam asher kupar bahem. Melamit shakarim ochlim u'balam iskaprim. So how can you leave the chaylev not offered? The whole purpose is destroyed because the Kohanim can't eat the meat, and then the mitzorah are not going to get kapara. Amerlei, you know what? Even the loyafsher, there's no other way. I saw him commission hit moshavdu. For example, let's say by the mitzorah they got lost or they got tomei. You know what? We allow the Kohanim to eat the meat. We don't ruin it for the mitzorah. The Kohanim can eat the meat, and the mitzvah gets their kapara. Tanya, yachol nitmu emur sha'avdu. Let's say they did the shchita, they did the zrika. The Kohanim have to eat the meat. Before they eat the meat, you got to offer the chaylev of the emurim on the mizbech. But they got lost, or they got tamei. I might think lo you Kohanim zakoyim b'chaz v'shok. The Kohanim might not be allowed to eat the meat. Talmud loymer v'hayach hazel arov v'navi komakom. Special din to protect the mitzorah that the Kohanim are allowed to eat the meat, even if the chaylev, which is normally supposed to be thrown on the mizbech, is lost. So we treat it the same way here. It's not worse than if they got lost or tamei. Period. Rav Kana Rami. Rav Kana showed a stira. Ksiv lo yalim chaylev chabiyah boker. You shouldn't allow the chaylev of your yontif korbanos to stay until the morning. Ad boiker hu de lo yolim. Until the morning you can. Hakol alayla kula yolim. But all night you can be mailing it on the Rosh HaMizbeach. Uksi viktir alechel ve'ashlamim. Yeah, but what's going on? You told me that aleh hashlam kol hakorban is kulon. That when you offer the tamid shel ben arbayim, that's the last korban. So therefore, it sounds like you have to be makir these chalavim that you placed on the mizbeach before you offered the korban shel ben arbayim. Who moisit love, who mafart love. Kishani toitru. It's only if they were not maspik lakra. You should bring them before the tamid. But if they were left after the tamid, you can wait until the morning. You shouldn't leave over the korban pesach until the morning. Implying it sounds like you could have them mailing at night. Vaksiv olat Shabbat b'Shabbatot. The olah has to be offered on Shabbos. Olas chol b'Shabbos. You can't bring yesterday's olah on Shabbos. Olas chol b'Yontif. And you can't bring yesterday's olah if you were mailing and you want to do tomorrow. You can't do it on Shabbos and Yontif. How can you do it? Leave over the korban pesach until the morning, and you're going to be offering it on Yontif. Armalek for Ranya Nila Rababa Rachil Ravavu. This was already asked for Shani Lay. This is only a case we're talking about Erev Pesach that fell on Shabbos because the Chelvei Shabbos craving beyontiv. So this Olah was the Olas of Shabbos. The Olas of Shabbos could be offered the next day on Yontiv, which is the first day of Yontiv. So what, you tell me that the whole pasuk that they dressed this drasha for, it's just for this one case when Erev Pesach falls on Shabbos? Yeah, you have no other way to explain it, and therefore it's a doichik pshat, but it's the only pshat that allows us to understand this theory. Mishnah. HaPesach sheshachtu shelo lishmo. So the four primary avodot of a korban, you have to do shchita, you have to kabbalah sadam and a kli, you have hoilacha, and then you have zrika. Now, at each one of the avodot, you have to have in mind, I'm doing it l'shem Pesach. If when I shech the korban Pesach, I have in mind it should be a shlomim, korban Pesach is pasul. It's only a chatas and a Pesach, where if you shech something shelo lishma, it's pasul. By other korbanos, it's not necessarily pasul. It might be kosher to eat. The Bailim don't get the credit for it. But here it's completely pasul. Now, not only if he shechted it, but the kibel v'halach l'zok shelo lishmo, he did the kabbalah, the hoilacha, the zrika shelo lishmo, or he did a combination, lishmo, the shelo lishmo, or shelo lishmo v'lishmo. In any of these perturbations, in all cases, pasul. So the Mishnah wants to ketzad lishmo v'shelo lishmo. Person had in mind l'shem Pesach, l'shem shlomim. So according to the Mishnah, it would be pasul. What does it shelo lishmo v'lishmo mean? He had in mind l'shem shlomim u'l'shem Pesach. So, boy Rav Papa, these two thoughts that the person had, ba'avoida achas tanan, is it talking about he had the two thoughts during the one act of shchita? Oh, b'shtei avodos tanan. Or it means, for example, during shchita, I had in mind it should be a Pesach, and during the zrika, I had in mind it should be a shlomim. If it's ba'avoida achas tanan, if you're talking about, I thought both machshavas during one avoda, the Rabbi Yosi, the Amar af bigmar dvarav adam nitfas. Major machlokas with Rav Meir and Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi says in the Sechta Tmura that even the second thing that a person says, he meant to say it, and it has halachic validity. Because the Rab Meir ha'amar tofus lasun rishon. Rab Meir holds once I say have in mind Pesach and Shlomim, the second word Shlomim doesn't count. Once I had in mind Pesach, that's it. It becomes a Pesach. It's only according to Rabbi Yosi that tofus lasun achron, that even in the last word that he says, and therefore you have a mixed machshava and it invalidates. That's only if you're talking about he has both of his thoughts during one avoda. O dilma b'shtei avodas tanan. Or maybe having the two avodah, having the machshavos were in two different avodot. Let's say one shchita, one zrika, and there even Rav Meir, who says tofes lashon rishon, that's only in one avodah, but in shtei avodas he's going to passel it. So we'll go over this tomorrow again. Tomorrow we'll do Samech 60. Tomorrow night we're going to learn Surim Rabbanan at 8 o'clock.